welcome to this channel and welcome to this video where I am going to be breaking down what a dysfunctional family unit does to a man on a psychological level. And this is something that is developing and becoming more and more common in modern society. And what I found with clients is that a lot of low self-worth, confidence issues, even stuff like the inability to follow through on the goals and the commitments that matter most to them, like their health, if it's a new business idea, whatever it may be, there's so many things that are tied to what's called the parental complex in Jungian psychology. So we're going to be breaking it all down today. And at the end of this, I'm going to give you one actionable step in which you can take to start to restructure your own psychology, because it has an effect on you, which we're going to be diving into here. Before we get into the video, feel free to download a copy of my book called Unbound, A Modern Man's Guide to Ending Destructive Patterns, Reclaiming His Inner Authority and Living Life on His Own Terms. So firstly, what do I mean by dysfunctional? And we have to look at this from an objective point of view. In this video, just for the first part of this video, this isn't a blame game. We just have to look at this from an objective point of view. In the last 50 odd years, the household has changed. It first started gradually, and now it seems to be more common than ever. And it's producing a particular type of man, one that I see in my practice every week, and one that I actually live for the majority of my early 20s and mid 20s. And if we look at this, so in the 1960s, around 85% of American children went to bed with two parents in the household. And that number has dropped drastically to around 65%. And that's more than 23 million kids now in households without two parents. And we're going to dive into why this is so important and why there's consequences of this. In Australia, it is a similar story. You have around 1 in 6 households are split. So the child or the young boy has really only access to one parent, which is dominant, and maybe the other parent is there or is completely out of the picture altogether. Now, that number does not count to the households that have dual parents, but maybe one comes home and goes straight to the office or goes straight into another work mode, or maybe they go drinking or whatever that might be. Or maybe it's the fact that one is emotionally dominant. Often I hear clients where their mother is emotionally dominant and the father is passive and just kind of rolls over. And that is not to say this person's a bad person or this person's a bad person. They're generally operating off the same psychological structures in which they were given. Whatever the family unit may be, whatever the sense of dysfunctionality that's happening within the family unit, many of the men that are coming from these are running into a life where they're not fully functioning themselves, due to the fact that parents are meant to give foundational psychological structures to a young boy specifically growing up, in which we're going to get into in the next part of this video. But if these psychological structures aren't developed properly within them, well then often cases they're going to be left in a case of like inability to regulate or control their own emotions, or they're going to find themselves in destructive patterns. A big thing is like inability to follow through on the goals that matter most to them. They can do very well in a successful in career. They have a good job ticked off a lot of the boxes, but there's an internal lack of authority within them, in which I am going to get into in this video. Okay, so there are two psychological structures that every man needs growing up. Every young boy needs growing up. Carl Jung, who is the founder of analytical psychology, his name is becoming more and more popular these days. He identified that every human being carries these internal psychological structures. Now, they're clusters of emotions, they're clusters of experience, and they're patterns. They're autonomous. They have very much a life of your own, and they live within your psyche, aka your mind, if you aren't familiar with his terminology. He called them complexes and archetypes. In my work, what I call them is psychological structures. Essentially, for a man, the two that matter the most are the parental complexes or the parental psychological structures. They're built from the relationship of each parent. And it's not so much the person itself, it's what the person is supposed to help me as a young boy or you as a young man develop. The mother structure comes in first. It gives the boy his own ground. It's his connection to his internal world, to his emotions. It's where the boy is to learn to be safe within within himself. It's a feeling of safety, the feeling of belonging. And if it is built well, it gives him a very, very good base for emotions, his internal world. Then the father structure comes in and builds on top of the mother's safety or the mother's base. And what the father structure is to do is help the man develop a healthy relationship with structure, with authority, with acting, with holding the line, his own internal authority, his own individuation in terms of his own, to help him develop to become his own man. It's a very important process. And one thing as well is he is to pull him away from the mother's comfort. It's crucial that the young man individuates from the mother and comfort. So if you think of it like a house, the mother gives the emotional foundation. It's poured deep, it holds weight, and everything else is kind of built on that within the first couple of years. The father structure then is the frame. It's the walls. It's where the man lives, and this is crucial as well. It's not the father building the house for the young boy. It's the father helping him build his own structure himself. It's not a complete copycat system. Either way, mother structure, foundation, without the frame, without the actual house, I mean, it's unlivable and there's no direction, there's no purpose behind it. And on the opposite side of that, a frame without foundation collapses the moment any emotional weight gets put on it. A man needs both built in that order over a sustained period of time. And if those structures don't exist, then the man actually misses out on a hugely part of his own psychological development. And that is what's producing the man I see in my practice every day, what I call the modern man. It's coming from a background that had a dysfunctional family unit, or the psychological structures weren't there for him to develop his own sense of self through that base period. Now, I want to point out that this doesn't mean that you can never develop these for yourself. Just because you missed out on them, that's it, that you're broken, that you're unfixable and you can't change. That's not the case. And so for the sake of this video, we are going to be looking at the psychological structure of the father. The reason why is because it's actually one I'm seeing most men running without, or there's some level of wounding towards it altogether. And it's producing a very specific condition I see within men all the time, and I've seen in my own life beforehand, is this lack of or complete absence of own inner authority. Inner authority is the language I just use with guys because it's something they resonate with most. And it's interesting when they tap in or actually develop this for themselves. I've seen it with my clients, the shift that happens when this operating system comes online within a man. And it is not discipline, it's not a bravado, it's not like this hyper masculinity that you kind of see online. It's just this felt sense of internally that this is my direction, this is who I am, these are my boundaries, this is like how I operate in this world, and whatever the world throws at me or whatever happens, it doesn't matter because I now have this felt sense of stability and structure within me. When this inner authority comes online, a man will start to meet life with a new drive and a new level of certainty. And when I talk about drive, this isn't like hyper productivity where you are just being productive and working and hustling all the time. No, it's very intentional movement. In majority of the guys I've seen and what I'm seeing within circles and what I'm seeing speaking to other guys, a lot of the time the family unit that is there, the father is not there, or he's only part there. And again, this is not to say dads are bad people. There's a lot of variabilities that we have to look at when it comes to that. But because that is not there, their inner authority, their sense of self, who they are and how they face the world, has never been given that ability or the encouragement to grow within themselves. And so even though men have done very well financially, and if they're even in relationships, they've really ticked off all the boxes when it comes to the things they want in life, I've often heard it from clients that they still feel like a passenger in their own existence because of this inner authority hasn't come online. So they're just watching life happen to them and reacting to it on a day-to-day or week-to-week basis. Now, it's not all bad news when it comes to the psychological structures, or if you missed out on one, you can develop these. We can develop these in real time, in real life right now. But the thing is, this isn't like a 30-day rewire or habit stack or morning routine or whatever, the alpha protocol for becoming more masculine. The problem we're seeing with all of these things, and I've seen this with my clients who have done a majority of this stuff, is that like all of that is renovating. It's bolting on more stuff onto a house that's not really constructed properly in the first place. The father complex is not built on the surface. It's built internally. It's built through a long process. It takes time. It does. Because whatever shape your current psychological structure, which the Father has given you right now, that exists and it does not die. You cannot kill off a part of your psyche, no matter what spiritual guru out there tells you. You actually can't. What happens is you have to build one on top of the other, and then the new one takes over. The one that's currently running right now, still operates. It's just we have internal authority to say, well, that's not the operating system I'm running off right now. It starts to take command and it starts to develop its own voice of its own internal authority. And even the old one pops up and shows up every now and then, but because you have now reinforced this new structure over a period of time, then it stops running you. You're able to recognize it. You know the shape it has taken in your life. You know how it shows up, and you're able to recognize and make conscious decisions from that place. I also want to point out here that this does not mean you become someone else. What you're doing is you're building in adulthood what was supposed to be built into you as a child, the psychological structures that you were meant to develop as a young man. And when that starts to develop properly, when that internal authority comes online from inside out, then things like holding standards, setting boundaries, doing stuff. I've seen clients who were like, yeah, I just go to the gym and I don't need the motivation behind it. I just know I need to do it and I go do it. And it doesn't become forced. You're not like forcing yourself to habit stack or be productive or time clocking, Pomodoro clocking every single day of your existence. And like trying to fit everything into one thing and like driving yourself mad. No, that's not the case. These sort of things happen naturally because you're driven by this new internal voice that knows that this has to be done, and that's that. You have that internal standard develop. And there's so much more that happens, but I'd be here all day talking about it. But essentially, you meet life with your own center, your own sense of, okay, this is, as me, as a man I've developed, I am meeting life with this standard, with this center of who I am personally. And that is available to any man who is willing to do the work and actually develop this properly. I have had people reach out to me saying, oh, am I too far gone or too broken? That's not the case. No, unless you are actually in psychosis or you've developed some sort of disorder, well then I would highly recommend you go see a professional about that. Okay, so one thing you can do to actually start to develop this structure is understand the current psychological structure that's in place, that current complex, and just sit with this question for the week. What did your father teach you and what did he not teach you about being a man? And sit with it, write whatever came up. One thing I want to point out about that question is it is not a blame game. Just look at it objectively, sit with it, write it out, and that's it. Over the next coming videos, I'll be diving deeper into what the modern man actually looks like in his work, in his relationships, in his patterns, and the specific work we're getting into when it comes to rebuilding the father structure. Also, if you found this valuable, I have written a deeper dive of this in my book called Unbound, A Modern Man's Guide to Breaking Destructive Patterns, Reclaiming His Own Inner Authority, and Living Life on His Own Terms.